What if I told you that for the price of a decent apartment in most American cities, you could live like royalty in one of the world's most vibrant countries? Not just survive, but actually thrive. Party with locals in underground scenes that would make Ibiza jealous, and eat better food than you've ever tasted in your life. That country is Brazil, and that monthly budget is just $700. But here's the thing. This is not about staying in hostels and eating instant noodles. This is about cracking the code of Brazilian living, finding the hidden neighborhoods where your money stretches like elastic, and, most importantly, accessing the nightlife that tourists pay hundreds of dollars to glimpse but never truly experience. Over the next few months, I lived this experiment firsthand. I'm talking about real apartments with real Brazilians as neighbors eating at the same botequins where construction workers grab their morning coffee and, yes, dancing until sunrise at parties in places most travel guides would tell you to avoid. The result? A lifestyle that costs less than what most people spend on their car payment, but delivers experiences that money usually can't buy. So grab a caipirinha and buckle up, because we're about to take a ride through Brazil that no tour bus will ever show you. The first reality check hits you the moment you start looking at cities most people can't even pronounce correctly. Sure, everyone knows Rio and Sao Paulo, but those are like judging America based solely on Manhattan rent prices. The real Brazil. The Brazil, where your $700 becomes a financial superpower, exists in places that do not appear on Hollywood postcards but offer everything you actually want from Brazilian culture, just without the tourist markup. Let me introduce you to 3 places that became my home base during this adventure. First, there's Recife in the Northeast, a city of 1.6 million people that most Americans could not find on a map if their life depended on it. This place is like Brazil's best-kept secret, stunning colonial architecture, beaches that rival anything in Rio. Here's what nobody tells you about Brazilian geography. This country is so massive that it spans multiple climate zones, meaning you can literally chase eternal spring if you plan it right. While Americans are shoveling snow, you could be surfing in Floripa. When that gets too touristy, head north to Recife, where the culture is more African-influenced and the music scene is absolutely insane. Need a break from beaches? Ouro Preto sits in the mountains with perfect weather year-round and enough colonial charm to make you feel like you've time-traveled to the 18th century. But here's where it gets interesting, and where most travelers completely miss the point. Brazilian culture operates on what locals call jeitinho brasileiro, literally the Brazilian way, which is this beautiful art of making life work through creativity, flexibility, and human connection rather than rigid rules. This isn't just a cultural curiosity, it's the key to unlocking everything we're going to talk about. When you understand jeitinho brasileiro, suddenly doors open that you didn't even know existed. Your typical day in Brazil starts around 6 a.m., not because you have to, but because you want to. The morning air is crisp, the street vendors are setting up their stalls, and there's this energy in the air that's impossible to describe but absolutely addictive. Coffee here isn't a Starbucks experience. It's tiny cups of liquid rocket fuel served at counters where construction workers, business people, and retirees all stand together gossiping about last night's football match. This social mixing is crucial because in Brazil, your network isn't just about business, it's about life. The guy serving your morning coffee might invite you to his daughter's birthday party, which turns into your introduction to authentic Brazilian hospitality. The work rhythm here follows a pattern that would drive efficiency experts crazy, but somehow produces incredible results. Most businesses close for lunch, not just a quick break, but an actual 2 to 3 hour pause where life slows down. This isn't laziness, it's wisdom. The afternoon heat in many parts of Brazil is genuinely intense, so why fight it? Instead, people eat properly, maybe take a nap, catch up with family, and return to work refreshed. As a foreigner living on $700 a month, this rhythm becomes your friend, because it means restaurants offer lunch specials that could feed you twice, and afternoon activities are often cheaper or free. Evenings are when Brazilian culture really comes alive, but not in the way tourist brochures describe. Yes, there are beach volleyball games and outdoor concerts, but the real magic happens in the neighborhoods. Every evening around 6 p.m., you'll see people dragging plastic chairs onto sidewalks, opening beers, and just talking. This isn't organized, it's organic. Kids play football in the streets while adults debate politics, gossip about neighbors, and share jokes that would make your grandmother blush. As a foreigner, being invited into these sidewalk sessions is your real cultural immersion. It's also free entertainment that's infinitely more authentic than any show you could buy a ticket for. Shopping culture here operates on a completely different logic than what most Americans are used to. Forget malls and big box stores, though they exist, and instead master the art of feira navigation. Every neighborhood has its weekly feira, which is part farmers market, part flea market, part social event. These aren't quaint tourist attractions. They're where locals actually shop because the prices are dramatically lower and the quality is often better. A typical feira morning involves dodging motorcycles, bargaining over fruit prices, and discovering vegetables you didn't know existed. Your $700 budget loves feiras because you can buy a week's worth of fresh produce for what Americans spend on a single restaurant meal. The food situation in Brazil deserves its own documentary, but let me give you the reality. For $5, you can eat better than most $50 meals in major American cities. The secret is understanding where locals actually eat versus where tourists get directed. Every neighborhood has its botequim, a cross between a diner and a corner pub where the menu is written on a chalkboard. The portions are enormous, and the atmosphere is pure neighborhood authenticity. My favorite botequim in Recife served a plate called baião de dois, rice, beans, cheese, and dried meat that cost about $3 and was so filling I couldn't finish it. The owner, Dona Maria, eventually started setting aside special portions for me because she was convinced I was too skinny. Street food is where Brazil's culinary creativity really shines, and where your budget becomes almost comically efficient. Pastel. These deep-fried pockets of joy filled with everything from cheese to shrimp to bizarre combinations that should not work, but absolutely do. Costs about $1 each and provides enough energy to power through an entire afternoon. Açaí isn't the expensive superfood smoothie Americans know. It's a purple paste served in bowls the size of your head, topped with granola, banana, and condensed milk, costing maybe $2 and providing enough antioxidants to power a small village. But the real food revelation is understanding Brazilian meal culture. Lunch is the main event, not dinner, which means the best deals happen between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Restaurants offer pratos feitos, basically complete meals including meat, rice, beans, salad, and sometimes dessert, for 3 to 5 euros. These aren't sad cafeteria trays. We're talking about actual home-style cooking that would cost $15 to $20 in any American city. I gained 10 pounds in my first month in Brazil, not from junk food, but from eating incredibly well on a budget that barely covered groceries back home. Feijoada deserves a special mention because it's not just food. It's a cultural institution. This black bean stew with various pork cuts is traditionally served on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and eating feijoada properly is almost a ceremonial experience. The beans are slow-cooked for hours until they reach this perfect creamy consistency. The meat falls apart at the touch of a fork, and it's served with white rice collard greens, orange slices, and farofa, toasted cassava flour that somehow makes everything taste better. A proper feijoada meal costs about $6 and provides enough calories to fuel a marathon, assuming you can move afterward. The drink culture in Brazil operates on multiple levels, each serving different social functions. Coffee is serious business here. Brazil produces about 1/3 of the world's coffee, and locals treat it accordingly. But we're not talking about elaborate barista ceremonies. Brazilian coffee culture is about strong, sweet, frequent doses throughout the day. A typical cafe costs about 25 cents. served in tiny cups that pack more caffeine punch than anything Starbucks produces. The social ritual around coffee is crucial. You don't just grab and go, you stand at the counter, chat with whoever's there, comment on the weather or football, and take 2 minutes to actually connect with other humans. Guaraná deserves recognition as possibly the world's most underrated soft drink. This fizzy, sweet concoction made from Amazon berries tastes like liquid happiness and costs about 50 cents per can. Locals drink it constantly, and after a few weeks, you understand why. It provides energy without the crash, tastes amazing with Brazilian food, and somehow makes every meal feel more festive. Coca-Cola exists here, but ordering it when Guaraná is available marks you as either a tourist or someone with questionable taste. Then there's cachaça, Brazil's national spirit and the key ingredient in caipirinhas. But here's what tourists miss. Cachaça culture extends far beyond caipirinhas. Good cachaça is sipped neat, like whiskey, and the variety is incredible. Artisanal cachaças from small distilleries offer complex flavors that rival expensive whiskeys, but cost a fraction of the price. A bottle of quality cachaça runs 8,15, providing dozens of drinks and serving as your gateway to Brazilian social life, because sharing cachaça is how friendships begin. This brings us to the nightlife situation, which is where Brazil reveals its true personality and where most travel guides completely fail their readers. The Brazil tourists see Copacabana clubs with 20 drinks and European DJs represents maybe 5% of actual Brazilian nightlife. The other 95% happens in places that don't advertise, don't have websites, and definitely don't accept reservations. This is the Brazil where your $700 budget does not just work, it makes you practically VIP. Real Brazilian nightlife starts around 10 p.m. and doesn't peak until 2 a.m., which means by the time tourists are heading back to their hotels, locals are just getting warmed up. The entry point into this world is usually through a botequim that transforms after dark. During the day, it's where construction workers grab lunch. After 9 p.m., someone sets up speakers, people start dancing between the tables, and suddenly you're in the middle of an impromptu samba session. No cover charge, drinks cost $2, and the energy is infectious. But the real revelation is the favela party scene, specifically the baile funk culture that tourists either never hear about or are explicitly warned against. Now, let me be clear. These aren't tourist attractions, and they require street smarts and local connections to access safely. But when done right, baile funk parties represent one of the most authentic cultural experiences Brazil offers. The music is Brazilian funk. Not the American variety, but a distinctly Brazilian genre that's bass-heavy, rhythmically complex, and absolutely hypnotic. The dancing is unlike anything you've seen, the energy is incredible, and the social dynamics are fascinating. Getting invited to a real baile funk requires patience and genuine connection with locals. You can't just show up, you need someone to vouch for you, explain the social rules, and guide you through the experience. But when it happens, you understand why Brazil's music scene influences the entire world. These parties happen in community spaces, often outdoors, with sound systems that could power a small city. Everyone dances, not just young people but entire families, from kids to grandparents, all moving to rhythms that seem to bypass your brain and go straight to your body. The LGBTQ+ nightlife scene in Brazil deserves special recognition because it's simultaneously more accepted and more vibrant than in most countries, while also being incredibly diverse across different regions. São Paulo has neighborhoods like Vila Madalena, where gay bars and clubs operate openly, with drag shows that would make RuPaul weep with joy. But even smaller cities like Florianópolis have thriving queer scenes, often centered around beach parties and underground club nights that combine acceptance with serious fun. What makes Brazilian nightlife special isn't just the music or dancing, it's the social integration. Unlike many countries where nightlife is segregated by age, class, or social group, Brazilian parties naturally mix different demographics. You'll find doctors dancing next to delivery drivers, retirees sharing drinks with college students, and everyone treating each other as equals united by music and shared enjoyment. This social fluidity is part of what makes your $700 budget work so well. You're not paying premium prices to access exclusive spaces. You're paying local prices to join genuine community celebrations. The dating and relationship culture in Brazil requires careful navigation, especially for foreign men who often arrive with completely wrong assumptions based on stereotypes and media portrayals. Brazilian women are not prizes to be won or conquests to be achieved. They're complex individuals living in a culture with its own social rules, expectations, and dynamics. Understanding these dynamics is not just about successful dating. It's about avoiding serious cultural missteps that could range from embarrassing to dangerous. Brazilian culture is inherently more physically affectionate than most Anglo cultures. Friends kiss on the cheek when greeting, people stand closer during conversations, and casual touch during social interactions is normal. For foreigners, especially Americans used to more physical distance, this can be misinterpreted as romantic interest when it's simply cultural norm. Learning to read these signals correctly takes time and often requires local friends to explain subtleties that aren't obvious to outsiders. The concept of beauty in Brazil is both more inclusive and more specific than many foreigners expect. Yes, physical fitness is highly valued, but Brazilian beauty standards celebrate curves, skin tone diversity, and a kind of confidence that's more about attitude than specific physical features. The stereotype of Brazilian women as exotic objects exists mainly in foreign imagination. The reality is a culture that values personality, humor, and social connection alongside physical attraction. Dating culture here operates on different timelines and expectations than many foreigners are used to. Casual dating exists, but family involvement happens much earlier and more intensively than in most Western cultures. Meeting someone's family isn't necessarily a sign of serious commitment, but it is a sign that you're being evaluated not just as a romantic partner, but as a potential member of an extended social network. This can be intimidating for foreigners used to more individualistic dating approaches. The economic dynamics of relationships also require understanding. Brazil has significant income inequality, which means assumptions about someone's financial situation based on appearance or neighborhood can be completely wrong. Additionally, the expectation that men pay for dates is still strong in many regions, but the amounts involved are much lower than what foreigners might expect. A nice dinner date might cost $15 total, not the $100+ Americans might budget for similar experiences. Safety in relationships requires the same street smarts as any other aspect of Brazilian life. This means understanding which neighborhoods are safe for dating activities, recognizing signs of potential problems, and having local contacts who can provide advice or assistance if needed. It also means being honest about your own intentions and situation. Brazilians value directness in relationships, and trying to be mysterious or playing games often backfires spectacularly. The practical economics of living on $700 monthly in Brazil require breaking down every expense category and understanding where flexibility exists versus where costs are fixed. Rent typically represents the largest expense, but the options vary dramatically based on location, housing type, and negotiation skills. In cities like Recife or Florianópolis, a decent one-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood runs $200, $300 monthly. This isn't luxury accommodation, but it's comfortable, functional, and located where locals actually live rather than tourist areas. Housing strategies that stretch your budget include considering neighborhoods slightly outside city centers, looking for apartments in residential buildings rather than tourist-oriented complexes, and negotiating longer-term leases for reduced monthly rates. Many landlords prefer stable, long-term tenants and will reduce rent for annual contracts paid in advance. Additionally, shared housing situations, common among Brazilian young professionals, can reduce housing costs to $150 monthly while providing built-in social connections. Utilities in Brazil require careful management because electricity costs can be significant, especially in hot climates where air conditioning becomes necessary. However, many Brazilian apartments are designed for natural cooling, with cross-ventilation and tile floors that help manage heat without constant AC use. Budget: $30 to $50 monthly for basic utilities including electricity, water, and gas. Internet service is generally reliable and affordable at $15 to $25 monthly for speeds sufficient for streaming and video calls. Transportation costs depend heavily on location and lifestyle choices. Public transportation in major Brazilian cities is extensive and affordable, with monthly transit passes costing $20 to $30. For occasional taxi or Uber use, budget another $30 to $50 monthly. Many Brazilians rely on bicycles for local transportation, and bike-sharing programs exist in larger cities. The key is choosing housing locations that minimize transportation needs. Brazilian cities often have neighborhood commercial areas where daily necessities are walking distance. Food represents the area where budget optimization has the most potential. Cooking at home using ingredients from local markets and feiras can keep food costs to $80 to $100 monthly while eating very well. This includes fresh fruits, vegetables, meat, and staples like rice and beans that form the foundation of Brazilian cuisine. Adding occasional restaurant meals and street food increases the budget to $120 to $150 monthly, but provides significant cultural and social benefits. Healthcare costs in Brazil present an interesting situation for foreigners. The public healthcare system, SUS, provides free basic care to residents, but foreigners typically rely on private health care. Basic private health insurance costs $30 to $50 monthly and covers routine medical care, prescriptions, and emergency services. Dental care is particularly affordable compared to U.S. prices, with routine cleanings costing $20 to $30 and more complex procedures costing a fraction of American prices. Personal expenses including clothing, entertainment, and miscellaneous purchases can be managed within $50 to $75 monthly with careful budgeting. Brazilian-made clothing is affordable and well-suited to local climate conditions. Entertainment costs remain low when focused on local activities rather than tourist-oriented events. Beach access is free. Many cultural events are free or low cost, and social activities often center around affordable group activities. The seasonal rhythm of Brazilian life revolves around festivals, celebrations, and cultural events that provide free or low-cost entertainment while offering deep cultural immersion. Carnival gets the international attention, but Brazil celebrates constantly throughout the year with festivals ranging from massive public events to intimate neighborhood celebrations. Festa Junina, in June and July, celebrates rural Brazilian culture with traditional foods, music, and dancing. These festivals happen in every neighborhood, usually centered around local churches or community centers, and provide incredible cultural experiences at minimal cost. Traditional foods like corn-based sweets, mulled wine, and grilled meats are sold at festival prices that locals can afford, meaning tourists can participate authentically without premium pricing. The Afro-Brazilian cultural calendar includes numerous celebrations that highlight Brazil's African heritage through music, dance, food, and spiritual practices. These events often blend Catholic traditions with African religious practices, creating unique cultural experiences that vary significantly by region. Salvador's Afro-Brazilian festivals are internationally famous, but smaller cities throughout the Northeast have equally authentic celebrations without tourist crowds. Regional festivals celebrate local history, food specialties, and cultural traditions. Wine festivals in southern Brazil, seafood festivals along the coast, and agricultural festivals in interior regions provide opportunities to experience authentic Brazilian culture while supporting local communities. These festivals typically last several days, include live music, traditional foods, and community activities, all at prices designed for local budgets. Music festivals range from massive commercial events to intimate local performances. While major festivals like Rock in Rio require significant ticket purchases, neighborhood music festivals, street performances, and small venue concerts provide regular musical experiences for minimal cost. Many Brazilian cities have weekly music events in public spaces, often featuring local bands and traditional music styles. Religious festivals in Brazil blend spiritual significance with community celebration, creating events that welcome participation regardless of personal religious beliefs. These festivals often include processions, traditional foods, music performances, and community activities that provide cultural education alongside entertainment. The social aspect of religious festivals makes them excellent opportunities for foreigners to connect with local communities in authentic settings. Transportation in Brazil requires understanding multiple systems that operate simultaneously, each serving different needs and budgets. Public transportation in major cities combines buses, metro systems, and alternative services like motorcycle taxis and shared vans. Master the bus system, and you can travel anywhere within a city for under $1 per trip. Bus routes can be confusing initially, but mobile apps provide real-time information, and locals are generally helpful with directions. Metro systems exist in larger cities like São Paulo, Rio, Brasilia, and Recife, providing fast, reliable transportation along major corridors. Metro tickets cost slightly more than buses but offer air conditioning, security, and predictable timing. Many cities offer integrated transportation cards that work across buses and metro systems while providing small discounts for frequent use. Uber and similar ride-sharing services operate throughout urban Brazil, with pricing significantly lower than American equivalents. A typical Uber ride within a city costs $2 to $5, making it viable for occasional use within a $700 monthly budget. However, surge pricing during peak hours or popular events can increase costs dramatically, so timing matters for budget-conscious usage. Intercity transportation opens possibilities for exploring different regions without major expense increases. Bus transportation between cities is extensive, comfortable, and affordable, with overnight buses offering sleeping accommodations that eliminate hotel costs while covering long distances. A bus trip from São Paulo to Rio costs about $15 to $25 and takes 60 to 7 hours, making weekend exploration viable within a tight budget. Domestic flights within Brazil can be surprisingly affordable when booked in advance, especially for longer distances where bus travel becomes impractical. Budget airlines offer flights between major cities for $50 to $100, making it possible to experience different regions without significant budget impact. This is particularly valuable given Brazil's size and regional diversity. Alternative transportation includes boat services in riverine areas, especially in the Amazon region and along the coast. These boats provide transportation while offering unique cultural experiences unavailable through conventional travel methods. Prices vary widely based on distance and service level, but basic transportation remains affordable for budget travelers. Safety considerations in Brazil require practical awareness rather than paranoid fear, but they do require attention and local knowledge. The reality is that safety varies dramatically by location, time of day, and individual behavior patterns. Understanding these variables and adjusting accordingly makes Brazilian living safe and enjoyable rather than stressful and restrictive. Neighborhood selection significantly impacts daily safety experiences. Areas with active street life, visible commercial activity, and regular police presence tend to be safer for foreigners. Avoid areas that locals recommend avoiding, regardless of how safe they might appear during daytime visits. Local recommendations carry more weight than guidebook advice or online reviews when it comes to safety assessment. Personal security practices include avoiding displays of wealth, staying aware of surroundings, and learning to recognize situations that might develop into problems before they escalate. This doesn't mean living in fear, but rather developing the street awareness that locals use to navigate daily life safely. Expensive electronics, jewelry, and large amounts of cash make you a target regardless of neighborhood safety levels. Emergency contacts and support systems are crucial for foreign residents. This includes local friends who can provide assistance, knowledge of local emergency services, and backup plans for various scenarios. Having a local phone number, understanding how to contact police or medical services, and knowing the locations of hospitals or pharmacies in your area are basic safety preparations. Healthcare access for foreigners requires understanding both public and private systems. While emergency care is available through the public system, routine healthcare typically requires private insurance or direct payment. Establishing relationships with local doctors, dentists, and pharmacies before health issues arise makes healthcare access smoother and more affordable. Banking and financial services for foreigners living in Brazil present both opportunities and challenges. Opening a local bank account typically requires resident status, but some banks offer services to tourists with proper documentation. International ATM networks provide cash access, but fees can be significant for frequent withdrawals. Credit cards are widely accepted in urban areas but less reliable in smaller towns or for small purchases. Currency exchange and money management require understanding both official exchange rates and practical exchange options. Currency exchange services exist in major cities and tourist areas, but rates and fees vary significantly. Some foreigners use informal exchange networks for better rates, but this involves additional risks and legal considerations. Digital payment systems in Brazil include mobile payment apps and online banking services that can simplify financial management for residents. However, accessing these services as a foreigner often requires local bank accounts or specific documentation not available to tourists. The visa situation for Brazil offers several options for foreigners interested in extended stays, each with different requirements, costs, and benefits. Tourist visas allow 90-day stays with the possibility of extension for another 90 days, providing 6 months total for exploring Brazilian life without major visa investment. For most nationalities, tourist visas are free and available on arrival or through simple online applications. Digital nomad visas became available in 2022, allowing remote workers to live in Brazil legally for up to 1 year with the possibility of extension. Requirements include proof of remote employment or freelance income of at least $1,500 monthly, health insurance, and a clean criminal record. The application process requires documentation and processing time, but provides legal resident status for extended stays. Student visas offer another pathway for extended Brazilian residents, particularly for those interested in learning Portuguese or studying Brazilian culture. Many universities offer programs specifically designed for foreign students, including language immersion programs that provide visa sponsorship while offering structured cultural education. Investment visas exist for foreigners willing to invest in Brazilian businesses or real estate, but minimum investment requirements make this option unsuitable for budget-focused travelers. However, understanding investment visa requirements can inform long-term planning for those who fall in love with Brazilian life. Work visas require Brazilian employment sponsorship, which is challenging but not impossible for foreigners with skills in demand. English teaching, particularly private tutoring, represents one area where informal work opportunities exist, though proper visa status is always preferable to legal gray areas. After months of living this experiment, the lessons learned extend far beyond budget management or travel tips. Brazil changed my perspective on what constitutes a rich life, what money can and cannot provide, and how cultural immersion creates value that no amount of tourist spending can match. The friendships formed while sharing 2 beers in neighborhood botequins prove more meaningful than expensive entertainment consumed in isolation. The cultural education gained through participating in local festivals provides insights unavailable in any guidebook or documentary. The $700 monthly budget proved not just viable but comfortable, allowing for good housing, excellent food, regular entertainment, and enough flexibility for spontaneous adventures. More importantly, living within local economic realities rather than tourist bubble pricing created authentic connections with Brazilian culture and people that would have been impossible with higher spending focused on foreign-oriented services. The challenge isn't financial, it's cultural adaptation, learning to live on Brazilian time rather than American efficiency standards, accepting that some things don't work the way they do back home, and finding joy in different approaches rather than frustration with unfamiliar systems. Developing patience with bureaucracy while appreciating the human connections that bureaucratic inefficiency sometimes creates. Brazil revealed itself as a country where money enhances life but doesn't define it, where social connections matter more than individual achievement, and where joy comes from shared experiences rather than personal possessions. The neighborhoods that welcomed me into their daily rhythms, the families who invited me to birthday parties, and the friends who taught me to dance samba aren't experiences that can be purchased. They're relationships that must be earned through genuine interest and cultural respect. For anyone considering similar adventures, the practical advice is straightforward. Choose your location carefully based on personal preferences rather than tourist reputation. Budget conservatively, but don't be afraid to invest in experiences that provide cultural access, and approach Brazilian culture with curiosity rather than judgment. The financial aspects are manageable. The cultural rewards are immeasurable. The secret nightlife that tourists never see isn't hidden because it's exclusive. It's hidden because it requires patience, local connections, and genuine cultural interest to access. The same applies to the food, the friendships, the daily rhythms, and all the other elements that make Brazilian life so compelling. Your $700 budget doesn't buy you a lifestyle. It provides the foundation for building relationships that create experiences money alone cannot purchase. Brazil taught me that the best adventures are not the ones you can afford. They are the ones that afford you the opportunity to become someone different than who you were when you arrived. If you're ready for that kind of transformation, pack light, budget carefully, and prepare for the ride of your life. Just remember to comment below if you'd try living this way, because trust me, once you experience Brazil like this, everywhere else feels a little less colorful, a little less musical, and a lot less alive.